Hey everybody, welcome to Average Guy Opinions. I am your average guy, John Corelli. This is episode 145, maybe just 145, huh? I can't even say 100 anymore. My brain is old and addled, and my cat's running around, so that'll be another distracting factor in this episode. I'd like to talk to you guys about my mom and cool things she does. I may have mentioned it in the past, but this is definitely worthy of a 10-minute episode. She I don't know the best way to put it. She just takes care of cats. Let's put it that way. But it's very involved what she does. She's gained quite a wealth of knowledge over the past, I believe, 20 years she's been doing it, maybe a little longer. And I should have asked her exactly when she started, but she's rescued literally thousands of cats. It's pretty cool. So what she does is she goes to feral cat colonies, which exist all over the suburbs and in the city too. But she has a few certain sites that she goes to. Some of them are mobile home parks. Some are apartments that are adjacent to maybe a vacant lot or have a shed that the cats hide under. They love, cats. Feral cats will look for any place they can to live and survive, just like any other living thing. I will put it, let's first describe what feral is, define the word feral. Feral means a domesticated animal that has gone back to its wild roots. Basically, that's the best way I can define it. So, feral cats, what they do is they can be very, actually, you got a mouse problem, you probably don't have one if you got a feral cat colony close by. They will eat what they need to eat to survive. Problem with feral cat colonies is obviously they reproduce, they get too big, they can carry all kinds of diseases like feline HIV. Generally, I've never heard of any rabies going on in that world, but my mom would know way better than me. I should have just maybe I'd just have her as a guest one time on my podcast. We can talk about cats for an hour. I will say this: she has manifested what could have been quite an insane. Sorry, mom. I know my mom watches all these, so this will be fun for me to get her reaction after this. But my mom was the cat lady. She was the cat lady back in the 70s and 80s when I was growing up. I've only seen cats give birth once, and that was thanks to my mom. Right as my mom and dad were getting divorced in 1973, 74, we lived at an apartment complex called Della Villa. And she got this little gray, ugly cat named Mercy. And Mercy had kittens, had four of them. And got to watch kittens being born. I was like 6 or 7 years old. It was really cool. And Mercy was a perfect name for this cat. Because you looked at her and went, Mercy. She was not a good looking cat. She was just kind of, her eyes were all squinty and her fur seemed matted a lot of the time. I mean, she had gray long fur and that way she was pretty, but this was a cat that had a rough life. But I watched her give birth to four kittens, and then we lived in the basement apartment at the time, and so my mom kept the window open so Mercy could go in and out because that was done back then. And unfortunately, I didn't know this, and she didn't know this. She had to learn this the hard way. The tomcat came in apparently and killed three of the kittens. The one that remained we named Rugrat. So we had Mercy and Rugrat. And I think we adopted maybe another cat. I think Blackberry, who was a beautiful black and white long-furred cat, if I remember correctly. Speaking of cats, mine's meowing to get out. Goodbye. That's one of my. That's Boba is one of my mom's rescues, by the way. Boba is a former feral cat as well. So anyway, back to some of the history. So 1974, my mom met my stepdad. In 1975, we moved from the crappy apartments called Della Villa in Westminster to Wheat Ridge, and we had, I believe, Blackberry and Mercy and Rugrat in tow. I may be wrong about that, but that sounds right to me. I was young, I was 7. And then we started our life in the suburbs. And mom was the same person, the same kind-hearted, beautiful woman that raised me was the same person to these cats. And we would leave bowls of food out. That wasn't unheard of back then. I mean, it still is done. And once again, we had access to the basement. I was a basement child for I'd say about 7 years. I lived upstairs until I was 10, and then we had a tenant that lived in the basement that my parents rented to. Sort of like the situation I'm in now. I'm in the downstairs, they're in the upstairs. But they left, and then we got the whole house. And luckily, when I was like 9 or 10 years old, I got to go downstairs and have the basement mostly to myself until my stepbrothers came around, and they would share it. And then Sean was born, and eventually he got down there too. But the basement windows were always open, except when it was really cold. And we would have bowls of food and water by them for the cats. And if the cats needed to and felt comfortable enough, they would come in. They were sort of our pets. They were indoor, outdoor. They weren't, we didn't. I don't know how well they were vaccinated. I know that, but there were some that just knew that this was the place they needed to be to survive. So ended up gathering cats. And at one point, we had 13 cats that were semi ours, but some of them were really ours. And I mean, there's a litany of names I could go through, but that would make this video 20 minutes. Then maybe I will do a two-parter. Why not? Let's talk about some of those cats. We had Spike. We had Chico. We we ran out of names. We named one cat. We just named her Cat because my mom. And sometimes it's funny how maybe nature or God or the universe or whatever you want to call it chooses you to do something. Because my mom would just find herself in situations. One time she was driving down 38th Avenue and this person just threw this little kitten out. Her name, and that was Cat. It's a little fluffy orange and white cat, beautiful. And somebody just said, "Oh, I'll just chuck her out on the road, probably get run over, and I won't have to worry about this shit anymore." And my mom's like, "Ah, okay," and grabbed her and brought her home, and she freaked out for a while. I remember one time she was just like all four, just paws. I don't know. Does that look good? She's on the screen door, just like, I need to get out of this fucking place. But eventually, she became a great outdoor cat. She lived, I think, 20 some years. My mom would know that too. But yeah, so we had, like I said, we ran out of names. But I have this list of names in my head, and my half brother could speak to this pretty well as well. But so that was, I remember friends would come over. Jesus, you guys got a lot of cats. I go, yeah, that's my mom. That's what my mom does. We had dogs too. We never had more than one dog at a time. We had Benji, which looked like a darker version of the Benji dog from the movies, and he was a pain in the ass. I loved him. He was a sweet little dog, but he would run out. You cracked the door open, he was gone. And I know my friends from Jefferson High and Wheat Ridge Junior High remember it would be like 6, 7 kids chasing this dog through the neighborhood, and he was impossible to catch. He actually got really hurt one time by another dog because he ended up staying outside for the night because we couldn't catch him. And then he got bit really bad by a bigger dog, and he suffered for a while. And then he survived. And then one day, we were walking around, my stepdad and I think my mom, and my stepdad, this golden retriever just comes trotting up, and very well trained. You could tell he was a lost dog, not a true stray. And my stepdad's like, "Oh, this is my dream dog here." And so Benji ended up going out to a farm. And we ended up with Chuck. And Chuck was a great pet for a very long time. But these dogs had to really deal with being surrounded by so many cats. And they did a great job of it, I thought. It was rare that they went after the cats that I can recall. But they were always, I was always stepping on a tail or backing into a cat. One of my favorite cats was Gimpy. And the reason she was named Gimpy is because my dipshit friend was playing with her too rough and broke her leg. But she ended up being amazing. She could catch anything. Her leg healed, and she was a great hunter. She killed a bird right in my hands one time. That was pretty terrible. I could see she had a little one, like a finch in her mouth. And it was right on my way to school. I was probably a sophomore or junior in high school. And I grabbed her and I thought, oh, maybe I can get the bird out of her mouth. And she just crunched down on it. And I was like, oh, and this bird started bleeding all over me. And I had to go to school in bloody clothes because I didn't want to be late for school. Just little instances like that. I rescued a couple mice. I remember the cats would bring mice in and be batting it around. I'd grab it and throw them in a bush and just keep the cat inside. Stuff like that. For the most part, I loved it though. Gimpy loved to sleep between my legs when I was in high school. That was her spot. And this is a gross little story about Gimpy, and then I'll go to part 2, I guess, on this and tell you more about what my mom does rather than my personal cat experiences. But Gimpy, we tried to get our cats fixed as much as we could. Mom and my stepdad Russ were very very responsible pet owners, I thought. Outside of having 13 at one point. But it was, I think we got most of them fixed. Some we got declawed, which was fine back then. Now, I don't think anyone even does it anymore, which is good because it's pretty awful. But back to Gimpy. Gimpy was on my arm one time. And I don't know if she was fixed or not. And the reason I don't know that is because she was just like mounting my arm in the middle of the night and I'm sorry, guys, this is gross, but getting it wet. I mean, literally just smearing my arm with her vulva. And I woke up and I just like took her and just threw her. Like, that's awful. Don't mate with my arm in the middle of the night. I'm not in the mood. Anyway, that's part one of cat adventures. And I'll come back with part two, a better homage to my mother. Sorry, Mom. Bye.